Polity. He had a twinkle in his eye. An old friend of mine, Jonathan Parrish, has a private vessel. He insists you make use of it for the next fortnight as his personal wedding gift. His crew is on standby. Jonathan Parrish. The name resonated. A famously private philanthropist and historian. Daniel had taken on a passion project for him, a commission to visually tell the story of Parrish's ancestors' expeditions. He did it for a nominal fee because the story itself captivated him. Daniel had treated the reclusive tycoon's family history with the same reverence he gave his own characters. And now, that reverence was being repaid in a way we could never have imagined. The next day, Daniel and I stood on the deck of a sailing yard so elegant it looked like it was carved from moonlight. A flute of champagne in my hand, or watch the coastline dissolve into a hazy blue line. I took out my phone, captured the moment, and posted a single photograph of Daniel and me. Our hands clasped, with the impossible blue of the deep ocean stretching out behind us. The caption was a simple declarative statement. The adventure begins. The transmission had been sent, not as an act of revenge, but as a declaration of independence. My old life had been a supporting role. My new one was the lead. 15 minutes later, my phone screen became a frantic web of calls and desperate messages. I silenced them all. In the end, there were 417 missed calls and text messages. The first call I chose to answer came 3 days into our voyage. After the barrage of notifications had become a running joke between Daniel and me. It was my mother, Beatrice. I let the phone ring until the last possible moment, a small reclamation of control in a lifetime of acquiescence. When I answered, I remained silent, allowing the vast, empty space of the ocean to fill the connection. Nina, is that you? Nina, for goodness sake, where are you? We have been beside ourselves with worry. The performance was so breathtaking in its dishonesty that it was almost admirable. They weren't worried. They were mystified. They were outraged. They were confronting a narrative they couldn't control, and it was driving them to distraction. "I'm on my honeymoon, Mother," I said, my voice as placid and steady as the horizon. I could hear my sister Iris in the background, her voice a sharp, impatient hiss. "Ask her where she got that boat. Ask her who is paying for it." My mother's tone pivoted instantly, from manufactured concern to pointed cross-examination. "A honeymoon? On a vessel of that magnitude?" Your sister saw the pictures. We are all quite perplexed. Did Daniel's family have resources you failed to mention? It would have been helpful to know. There it was. The frantic scrambling for a logical foothold. For any explanation that would keep their neatly constructed universe from flying apart. They needed Daniel to be a secret heir, a trust fund kid playing at being a bohemian. Because the alternative that they had made a colossal error in judgment based on their own superficial criteria was an existential threat. They had to be the victims of my secrecy, not the authors of their own exclusion. This was the pivotal moment. The conversational endgame I had been unknowingly preparing for my entire life. I took a slow sip of my drink, watching a pod of dolphins arc gracefully through the waves. "No, Mother," I said, letting the simple denial expand in the silence. Daniel doesn't have a hidden fortune. He has something far more valuable. Something your world doesn't have a column for in its ledger. Talent and a reputation for excellence, too. And those qualities, it turns out, are their own form of currency. Among people who matter. The silence on the other end was so profound, I could almost hear the gears of her mind seizing up. I continued, my voice deliberately light and conversational. "The yacht belongs to a gentleman named Jonathan Parrish. He's one of Daniel's clients, too. He was so moved by the way Daniel brought his family's history to life that he offered this trip as a personal wedding present. It was all arranged by Mr. Davis. The sound my mother made was a faint, strangled noise, like a balloon slowly deflating. Mr. Davis. The landlord? The quiet, polite man they had dismissed as a functional part of the background. Like a lamppost or a mailbox? The notion that this man, this figure from the periphery of my supposedly small life, could casually command the favor of a man like Parrish was a paradigm-shifting revelation. It violated the fundamental laws of their social physics. It wasn't about the money you had. It was about the respect you commanded, a concept they had never bothered to learn. Mr. Davis, she repeated, the name sounding like a word in a foreign language she was struggling to pronounce. The man who owned your cottage. The very same, I confirmed. The man who graciously stepped in to walk me down the aisle when my own father was otherwise engaged with a cannon full of colored powder. It's remarkable, isn't it? When you consistently treat people with decency and respect, regardless of their perceived net worth, they tend to remember it. You and Father should try it sometime. I could hear Iris in the background, her voice no longer a hiss, but a full-blown squawk of indignation. This is ridiculous. This is a setup. She planned this. She did this deliberately, to make us look bad. She did this to humiliate us. I smiled. A real, genuine smile. I have to go now, Mother. The crew has just spotted a migrating whale. I don't want to miss it. Give my best to the family. I disconnected the call before the sputtering could begin, cutting the final thread with a clean, satisfying snip. I turned to Daniel, who was sketching the distant shadow of the whale in his notebook, his focus absolute. For years, my family had made me feel like an apology. They'd appraised my husband based on the ink on his fingers, never bothering to read the magnificent stories he told. These saw a quiet man in a simple studio and assumed his world was just as small. They never imagined that this same quiet man was held in high esteem by people whose worlds were so vast they made my family's manicured suburb look like a terrarium. The 417 missed calls were artifacts of their own spectacular folly. Each notification was a digital ghost of a connection they had chosen to sever. A celebration they had snubbed only to discover it was the only one that mattered. They hadn't just skipped a wedding. They had fundamentally misread the entire map of my life. Standing there, the sea breeze in my hair, I realized the most profound truth of all. By casting me out, they hadn't diminished me. They had inadvertently set me free on a grander ocean than they could ever have conceived of. Thanks for listening to this story.